Good afternoon, students. I am back with a new topic, kingdom plant. Although we can also call it as kingdom planty, but since NCERT has mentioned it as kingdom plant, I try to stick to that. So first let us understand why we are going to study artificial classification and natural classification under this chapter. Because till now we know that under kingdom plantae we had fungi, cyanobacteria and other unicellular organisms, and those were kept under kingdom plantae since the method of classification was artificial classification. But this new form of classification comes under natural classification. So let us understand first briefly differences between artificial classification and natural classification. And mind it, students, this is as well important for your exam. So what is artificial classification? It is based on superficial morphological character. It is based on superficial morphological character. Matlab, habit, color, shape of leaves. These are all very superficial, right? Habit, color, shape of leaves. But natural classification is based not only on external but also internal features. तो क्या है? Natural classification not only considers external features but also internal. Artificial classification is mostly based on vegetative features. And vegetative features we know has a lot of dependence on the habitat. So this might lead to a false classification. And artificial classification is much dependent on vegetative features. Whereas natural classification is based on ultrastructure of cell, anatomy, embryology, phytochemistry. In artificial classification, there is a weightage for sexual characteristics, but it gives equal weightage to sexual and vegetative characteristics, which often leads to misclassification. So we have migrated from artificial classification to natural classification. One example of natural classification is Bentham and Hooker's classification. So Bentham and Hooker's classification of plant is what we are going to study now in this chapter or in this lecture. There are other types of classification system like phylogenetic classification system. What is that? This is done based on evolutionary relationship between organisms. It is done based on evolutionary relationship between organisms. Like it assumes that organisms belonging to same taxa have common ancestor. Like if we draw a phylogenetic tree, in this type of classification, they will think that this organism has a common ancestor, this. Okay, like organism A, B, C will have a common ancestor A minus, or A, B, C will be placed in a single taxonomic unit only because it comes from a single ancestor A minus. Okay, so the reverse can also be true. So this kind of classification is known as phylogenetic classification. Now comes numerical taxonomy. Now, in today's world, taxonomy has got very advanced and we are dealing with numerical taxonomy. These are carried out using computers. How? Their characters, like all these things like ultrastructure, anatomy, embryology, they are given certain numbers and codes. Okay, they are given certain numbers and codes. and then they are run with some particular algorithm where each characters are given equal importance, and they are being classified into different groups based on the numbers and codes given to the characters. So what is the benefit? That hundreds of characters can be considered together for classification of a particular organism or several organisms, like hundreds of characters. Its color, its embryology, its anatomy, its reproductive feature, its habitat, many things can be considered in one go in one system. So numerical taxonomy is very beneficial in today's world. Now there is another form of taxonomy, which is cytotaxonomy. This is basically again a type of natural classification, and they are based on cytological informations. They are based on cytological informations. What are the cytological informations? Chromosome number, structure, structure as in cell structure. Okay, it can be also based on presence of cell wall, absence of cell wall, anything, any cytological information or cell related information is the basis of cytotaxonomy. Then we are coming to chemotaxonomy. This is a very new field, and it is based on chemical constituents of the plants. This is based on chemical constituents of the plants. So after chemotaxonomy, now we are going to our first division under kingdom Plantae, that is algae. What is the first division under kingdom Plantae? Is algae. Okay, so first let's see something. What are the different divisions under plant? Under plant, there are algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperm, and angiosperm. So under plant, the divisions are algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm, and angiosperm. Okay. Let me write it more clearly if you want me to. So what are the different divisions? Algae, which we are going to deal with today. Then there are bryophytes, then pteridophytes, then gymnosperm, and finally angiosperm. Angiosperm are the plants that we mostly see like around us, mango, jackfruit, these are angiosperms. Gymnosperms are ferns. are the mostly the evergreen plants. Pteridophyte are the ferns. Bryophyte is Merkensia, Selagilera, all those things. And algae, to we know green algae, red algae, all these are under algae. Okay. So now let's start with algae. First, let us go through the basic or typical structure of algae. Let us go through basic or typical structure of algae. What is the typical structure of algae? It is a simple thallus-like structure. It is a simple thallus-like structure which is generally having chlorophyll. So, simple thallus bearing chlorophyll. Now, what will it do bearing chlorophyll? It will obviously synthesize its own food. Correct? So, it is again generally autotrophic. So, it is bearing chlorophyll. It is a simple thalloid structure and it is autotrophic. It is mostly aquatic. Its habitat is aquatic. And it is both freshwater and marine water living organism. Okay. So, it is aquatic. And which type of aquatic? Both freshwater and marine. And it can range from a colonial form, that is volvox, to filamentous form, that is eulothrix. Okay. Like it can stay as a colony or as filament. So again, let us go through. It is chlorophyll bearing. It has a simple thallus-like structure. Since it is chlorophyll bearing, we can understand it is autotrophic. Its habitat is mostly aquatic, that we know that since we can see like lot of algal bloom and all these things in water. No, this is a very hot topic in water pollution. So we know that its habitat is largely aquatic. Which type of aquatic? Both freshwater and marine. And how does it exist in the environment? Both in colonial form, like in volvox, to filamentous form, like in eulothrix. Now let us go to the reproduction pattern of algae. So this is kind of a mind map of reproduction. Here we can find that there are three types of reproduction. That goes on in algae. First one is vegetative. How? Through fragmentation. This is very easy. From one, it will be fragmented into two, and each of them will give rise to a full-grown algae. So this is vegetative. Done. Next one is asexual. What do we understand by asexual, since we already had came across Monera, Protista, fungi? So just by hearing asexual, what comes to our mind is spore formation. Here we find zoospores. What are zoospores? These are flagellated motile spores. What are zoospores? These are flagellated motile spores. And what is their function? These spores directly germinate and gives rise to new plants. Or we can say new algae. Okay. So through asexual reproduction is done through zoospore, which are flagellated motile spores, and it directly germinates to give rise to new algae. So 1, vegetative done. 2, asexual done. Now we will be coming to sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction happens through fusion of gametes. Sexual reproduction happens through fusion of gametes. Now, this fusion of gametes can happen in three different ways. So, there are three different types of fusion of gametes. One is isogamous, one is oogamous, another is anisogamous. One is isogamous, next is oogamous, and third is anisogamous. Okay. So what do we remember hearing the word iso? Gammas comes from gametes. Gammas comes from gametes. So that part is clear. Now what do we remember hearing this word iso? Means similar. Okay, means similar. So here two similar sized gametes are fused. In isogamous fusion, two similar sized gametes are fused. They can be either flagellated or non-flagellated. Okay, they can be either flagellated or non-flagellated, but isogamous fusion will always involve two similar sized gametes. Now let us come directly to the third one, that is anisogamous. So what do you think anisogamous will be? Yeah, two dissimilar gametes. Two dissimilar gametes which are dissimilar in size. Example is Eudorina. Example is Eudorina. Now the third type is little bit interesting, that is oogamous. Third type is interesting, that is oogamous. Here one is a large gamete, other one is a small gamete. And this little bit resembles the higher plants, reproduction in higher plants. What happens here? There is a one large non-motile female gamete. There is a one large non-motile female gamete. And there is one small motile male gamete. There is one small motile male gamete. This is seen in volvox and fucus. So, here this is known as oogamous, where one large non-motile female gamete is fused to one small motile male gamete. Is known as, this process is known as oogamy or oogamous reproduction. Now let us quickly go through the importance of algae, because there is not much to explain here. It is involved in carbon dioxide fixation of almost half of the total carbon dioxide on Earth. Okay, can you imagine? It is involved in fixation of almost half of the total carbon dioxide on Earth. How? Through photosynthesis. Through photosynthesis. Now we can understand, since it undergoes photosynthesis, it will obviously increase the amount of dissolved oxygen in immediate environment. Why we are telling dissolved oxygen? Because algae is mostly present in aquatic system. Here oxygen remains in its dissolved state. So one is carbon dioxide fixation through photosynthesis, which again results in increased level of dissolved oxygen, and it is again the primary producer in its environment of the energy rich compounds and helps food cycle of aquatic fauna, that is aquatic animals. Like plants help us in our food cycle, in aquatic fauna, who will help the primary producers are algae. There are three types of algae, which is Porphyra, Laminaria and Sargassum. Porphyra, Laminaria and Sargassum. These can be directly used as food. These can be directly used as food. Now comes a very important substance that is produced by algae. These are hydrocolloids. What are hydrocolloids? These are water holding substances. So let us understand, like there are two very famous and very important hydrocolloids present in the algal system. One is algine, produced by brown algae. Another is carrageen, again produced by brown algae. Another one is agar, which is produced by gelidium and gracilaria. So these are the three substances which are used in food industry, cosmetics industry for several research purposes. अगर आप में से कोई research में जाओगे ना बेटा तो agar का use तो मतलब भर भर के होगा. तो these are three different very important algal byproducts that we get. One is algine, one is carrageen, another is agar. Now let us come to chlorella. What is chlorella? The superfood. We hear much about the space travelers taking just a tablet instead of food. That is known as superfood. So these are basically unicellular algae, protein-rich unicellular algae, and are used in food supplement by the space travelers. Okay. So here more or less importance of algae ends here. Now we will be coming to the first division under algae. To the first division under algae, and that is Chlorophyceae has a very important and very famous organism, that is volvox and Eulothrix. Like before in the introduction, we came across this point that it can range from colonial form to filamentous form. So volvox is existing in the colonial form. This bigger circle is the parent colony, among which there are these small colonies known as daughter colony. And Eulothrix, as we can see, exists in a filamentous form. So what is the other name of Chlorophyceae? Green algae. What is the other name of Chlorophyceae? Green algae. इसमें बस एक बात याद रखना बेटा कि don't confuse it with the blue green algae. Many of the students get confused in the MCQ, this green algae with blue green algae. Blue green algae is actually cyanobacteria. इसमें confused नहीं होना है. ठीक है? So this is Chlorophyceae is also known as green algae. And what are its forms? It can be unicellular, colonial, filamentous. All these three ways it can exist. Okay. And there is a presence of chlorophyll A and B. There is a presence of chlorophyll A and B. What are the shapes of the chloroplast? It can be discoid, plate-like, reticulate, cup-shaped, spiral, ribbon-shaped. It can be discoid, plate-like, reticulate, cup-shaped, spiral, and ribbon-shaped. So these are the 6 to 7 types of chloroplasts that can be present. Types of shapes of chloroplasts that can be present. There is one interesting feature that there is a storage body known as pyrenoids. There is a storage body known as pyrenoids, and it is present within the chloroplast. It is present within the chloroplast. Pyrenoids can store starch, and algae might also store food in the form of oil droplet. Algae can also store food in the form of oil droplet. So, what is the type of stored food in Chlorophyceae? It can be starch or oil droplet. It can be starch or oil droplet. Okay. Now, it has a rigid cell wall. It has a rigid cell wall where the inner layer is made up of cellulose, and the outer layer is made up of pectose. Inner layer cellulose, outer layer pectose. Inner layer cellulose, outer layer pectose. And a very rigid cell wall. It has a very rigid cell wall. Okay, till now what are the points that we have read? It is also known as green algae. Why? Because it has chlorophyll A and B, and it can exist in the following forms, that is unicellular, colonial, filamentous. Okay. Chloroplasts are of following shapes: discoid, plate-like, reticulate, cup-shaped, spiral, ribbon-shaped. There is one interesting feature, that is presence of pyrenoids inside chloroplast, and it can store starch. Algae can also store food in the form of oil droplet. Okay. Now let us come to its reproduction. Reproduction can happen through fragmentation, asexual reproduction through again flagellated motile zoospore, which is produced in zoosporangia. Where is the zoospore produced? Inside the zoosporangia. And here the sexual reproduction can occur through isogamous, anisogamous and eugamous fusion. All three possibilities are there in case of sexual reproduction. So now let us come to Phaeophyceae or brown algae. Phaeophyceae or brown algae. Brown algae means it is not only present in brown color, it is present in olive green to brown color, like shades of olive green to brown color. So it is also known as brown algae. And what are the typical examples of Phaeophyceae? Laminaria, fucus, dictyota. Laminaria, fucus, dictyota. So these are also known as brown algae, and they are primarily in marine habitat. Okay, they are primarily in marine habitat. They can be simple branched like this. They can be filamentous or profusely branched like dictyota. They can reach a height of 100 meters. They can reach a height of 100 meters. So what are the characteristic features it has? It can be simple branched, it can be filamentous, it can be profusely branched, and it can reach a height of 100 meters. Now, what are the types of pigments that are present in brown algae? It has chlorophyll A, C, carotenoid and xanthophylls. It has chlorophyll A, C, carotenoids and xanthophylls. So, what are the pigments? Chlorophyll A, C, carotenoids and xanthophylls. Like as I said, it can vary from olive green to brown color. Now, the food is stored as complex carbohydrate. The food is stored as complex carbohydrate like laminarin and mannitol. Like laminarin and mannitol. Okay. So, previously in chlorophyceae, what were the ways the food was stored? It is starch or oil. It is starch or oil. Here we can see complex carbohydrate. Here we can see complex carbohydrate in Phaeophyceae. Here cellulose wall is covered by algine. Here cellulose wall is covered by algine. The same substance that I was telling in the importance. These are hydrocolloids. These are hydrocolloids, that is gelatinous coating. In chlorophyceae, we learned that it has an inner layer of cellulose and an outer layer of pectose. So here it is inner layer of cellulose and outer layer of algine. Here there is a feature called as hold fast. What is hold fast? Let me go back to the image and then I am explaining you. This is the hold fast. Hold fast actually attaches the algae to the substratum. It attaches the algae to the substratum. Now, next there is a stalk known as stipe. There is a stalk known as stipe, and beyond that there is a leaf-like structure. There is a leaf-like structure which is known as frond. There is a leaf-like structure which is known as frond. If you cannot see this handwriting, once again, frond. Okay, so there is a hold fast which will hold the algae to the substratum. Then there is a stalk which is known as stipe, and beyond that there is a leaf-like structure known as frond. Again, its reproduction can happen through vegetative way by fragmentation, asexual way by biflagellate zoospore. Here it will be biflagellate zoospore, which is pear-shaped, and the flagella will be two unequal flagella. So what are the points that we should remember here? In Phaeophyce, that is asexual reproduction is through biflagellate spore, and the flagella will be unequal and pear-shaped. Flagella will be unequal and the zoospore will be pear-shaped. Sexual reproduction can happen through all the three ways: isogamous, anisogamous and oogamous. Okay, and the gametes will be also pyriform, that is pear-shaped. So it is now easy to remember both asexual zoospore and the sexual gamete are pear-shaped. And there will be again two laterally attached flagella. In zoospore also it is biflagellate, that is two flagella is there. And in gametes also two flagella will be there. The only thing is that in case of zoospore, the flagella will be unequal. In case of zoospore, the flagella will be unequal. Now let us come to the last division of algae, that is rhodophyce or red algae. Rhodophyce or red algae. Two typical examples are Porphyra and Polysiphonia. Porphyra and Polysiphonia. Now they are mostly present in warmer areas like the tropical areas. But they can be present in well-lit area, that is close to the water surface, or in the less lit area, that is the depths of the water bodies. So what are the points of rhodophyce? It is also known as red algae. And why it is known as red algae? Because of the presence of phycoerythrin. This is a pigment which is hugely abundant in red algae. ठीक है ना बेटा? So why it is known as red algae? Because it has a red pigment or phycoerythrin. And where it is present? It is generally present in warmer areas, but it can be present in well-lit areas as well as less lit areas. These are mostly multicellular and it will have red thalli. The food stored is Floridian starch. This is important point. The food stored is Floridian starch. In previously Phaeophyce, we found the food stored is mannitol, laminarin, which are the complex carbohydrates. In case of chlorophyce, it was starch and oil droplets. Here the food stored is Floridian starch, which is similar to amylopectin or glycogen. These are very similar to amylopectin or glycogen. Again, vegetative reproduction through fragmentation, asexual through non-motile spore, reproduction by sexual mode by non-motile gamete, oogamous, and there is a complex post-fertilization development. Okay, in case of sexual mode, it happens through non-motile gamete, oogamous, and complex post-fertilization developments are seen. So, these are the basic characteristics of the red algae, and here we are ending our topic on algae. Our next topic can be MCQ on Protista. Since we have done MCQ only till Monera, our next topic can be MCQ on Protista or lecture video on Bryophyte or lecture video on Bryophyte. तो क्या है ना बेटा, आप लोगों को क्या चाहिए, मतलब पहले MCQ चाहिए, पहले ब्रायोफाइट का लेक्चर चाहिए? अगर मुझे थोड़ा कमेंट सेक्शन में आप बोलेंगे तो मेरे लिए आसानी होगा वीडियोस बनाने में. एनीवेज, अदरवाइज आई विल बी कमिंग विथ एनी ऑफ द मेंशन टॉपिक्स. Till then, good luck, happy learning, and meet you with the next video on MCQ on Protista or Bryophyte. Thank you.